The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. The brand new offer for customers, pledge $5, get $100 in bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Tuesday, September 30th, around 9:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again, going solo for this pod. Time to get into the preview of Shanghai. Going to break down the Masters 1000 event. We're going to get into the quarters as well. We have quarter odds, and we have outrights for the entire event. Do want to address, though, the gap there in the schedule. We end up deciding to skip the final in Beijing, mainly because you have Sinner, who's about minus 3,000. So decided to skip it, and instead we're just going to pivot into the next event. So either way, we thought about doing 2 episodes on Tuesday, didn't really have the time, but also Sinner is such a massive favorite that there's really not much value to be found unless you make a case for TN. So didn't really want to bother, so I ended up skipping it, instead moving on to the next event. Now, before we get into the actual breakdown of the quarters in Shanghai, and before we recap the actual, I'd say, lock and dog plays, a reminder that you can also support the show by subscribing to YouTube. Reminder, you also leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple. Podcast available once again on YouTube for video format or audio format with Spotify and Apple. You can watch it either way. Point is, help the show grow by subscribing on YouTube and leave your rating and a review on Spotify and Apple. Plus, a reminder, we have a nice discount on the merch store right now. If you use the code If you use the code football at checkout, you get a quarter off everything in the merch store. So make sure you use the promo code football at checkout for a quarter off everything in the SGPN merch store. We have a lot of great tennis merch, sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs. Check it all out. Think you'll like the options we have. Once again, use code football at checkout for a nice 25% discount. So getting into the recap of the lock and dog for the last episode, not good. For the lock, picked up a loss. We had Dimonauer team total under 8.5 at minus 135. Can't really say that it was unlucky because Sinner did win the first set. Dimonauer, though, played out of his mind in the second set, and he actually won the second set. Then Sinner killed him in the third, but it didn't matter as Dimonauer went over his games. Second set was definitely close. Thought Dimonauer outplayed him, but Sinner still had some chances. Just couldn't convert, and eventually Dimonauer did find a break to win the set. So at that point, the bet was dead. Picked up a loss there for the lock. For the dog, had a loss there with Medvedev money line with the TN under 1.5 aces at even money. Medvedev got injured, ended up having to retire midway through the third set. Didn't matter, though. TN got an ace pretty early on in the match. And then once Medvedev got hurt, he flew over. But I'd say he got through about a set and a half or two. And then eventually, I think it was 2 sets, actually. And then he got another one in the third. But the point is, we're looking at TN, who served well. Medvedev couldn't move, started cramping, and had to retire. But either way, point is, once the injury happened, TN's serving aces picked up, and Medvedev couldn't move as he lost. So Medvedev had a golden chance to make it to an ATP final. Instead, his body betrayed him, and TN did get the job done in 2.5 sets. Now, for the recap, though, for the matches, Beijing, mentioned the 2 of them a second ago. You saw Sinner win again against Dimonauer. He's currently 11-0. Dimonauer can't beat the guy, simply put. Dimonauer, despite ruining our bet with the team total under, the fact is Dimonauer played a great match. Thought it was one of the best matches he ever played for the first couple sets. And yet Sinner still won a set, and he had some chances into the second set. Dimonauer played aggressively. He played strong, but eventually he ran out of gas, and Sinner took control early into the third set. But either way, Dimonauer ended up giving a good effort, not good enough. Sinner got the job done as he makes it to the final. Now, Medvedev was a massive favorite. He got injured. In fact, you had a bit of a situation where the chair umpire accused him of basically tanking by not showing good effort, when in reality, he couldn't move. Like, one of his legs stopped working because he was cramping. So, yeah, pretty rough look there for the chair umpire. But Medvedev was up 7-5, 5-3. Classic Medvedev, he choked, and that's why he's top 2 in the clown leaderboards. Number 1 being Tsitsipas, of course. But the point is, Medvedev had a golden opportunity. Then he ended up losing. The body fell apart, and he ended up quitting. So nice job by TN, though, for making a very difficult run. I'll mention in a second. But his path to the final has been very tough. So nice job by TN. He's supposed to get his ass kicked against Sinner on Wednesday. Probably what happens, but still, nice showing by TN to make it to his first ever ATP final. Moving on, though, to the good news in Tokyo. We had a nice win. Guaranteed winner with Alcaraz and Fritz outrights, and Alcaraz did win at minus 160. Not creative, but either way, a win's a win, and Alcaraz got the job done mostly comfortably. He ended up having a tough 3-setter against Rude. That was it. He won every other set, and Fritz ended up making the sets close. It really wasn't as close as the scoreline indicates at 6-4, 6-4, because Alcaraz had a bunch of breakpoint chances, failed, that eventually converted at the end of the first set. Then he was able to double break into the second set. He gave up one of them back. Didn't matter. Hit 3 separate drop shot winners, basically, in the final service game as he won a title. So nothing shocking, nothing too creative. Doesn't matter. Nice win, as Alcaraz did end up winning in Tokyo in straight sets. So either way, point is for the actual matchups once again. That's going to wrap it up for Beijing and for Tokyo. We will not cover the final in Beijing. So whatever you choose to bet, good luck to you on that one. Moving on to the Shanghai Masters, a big event. I believe it is the second to last Masters 1000 event of the entire season, with Paris being the last one. So Masters 1000 events we know are pretty intense. Very, very solid amount of good players. However, Alcaraz did announce he's dropping out after playing in the Laver Cup. Well, he had the U.S. Open, the Laver Cup, followed by, of course, this past week winning Tokyo. He decided, you know what, I'm good. So he is not here for the event. So keep that in mind. No Alcaraz. We have a couple other injuries. No Dimitrov, of course. But for the most part, a pretty solid overall roster, assuming Sinner doesn't drop out, even though he is playing on Wednesday morning. So recent winners, Sinner ended up beating Djokovic last year. Hurkacz beat Rublev in straight, I believe that was a 3-set marathon in that one. Saw Medvedev beat Zverev and saw Djokovic beat George. So the point is you have seen a pretty interesting trend here, which is people not repeating as champions. There has not been a repeat champion at the event since Djokovic roughly 13, 14 years ago. So it's been a long time for Djokovic to win back-to-back. So if you want to go for somebody else, that means you are not taking Sinner as defending champion. And the fact is, Sinner's not really in great physical form anyway. He looks like he's been limping a bit more, and he has been getting by in a non-dominant fashion, which is pretty rare to see for a guy of Sinner's caliber. But either way, no repeat champion since 2013. We'll see if Sinner can break the streak. But either way, wanted to mention that. I think it is important to acknowledge how unpredictable this event has been over the last 15 years, basically. So moving on into the first quarter for the event. Starting off for the first quarter, you have de Minaur at 225. You have Medvedev at 5-1. Tsitsipas at around 850. See Khachanov at 900. I see Fekina at 900. I see Mutet at around 1,000. I see Kaz at 1,200. Tien 1,400. Nakashima 1,600. I see Nori at 2,200. I see Wu at 2,200 as well. Ottman 28-1 off of the 3-set loss he had against Sinner a couple days ago. You get the point. So getting into the actual draw for the first quarter, I am a big fan of, I'd say, how weak the quarter actually is and why it translates to a great path for de Minaur. Because de Minaur, despite losing to Sinner, I thought he looked fantastic. And I think that his draw is very favorable. Now, he has Ottman or Carabelli potentially in the second round. I think it's going to obviously be Ottman, who's been good lately, but he seemed to be a bit injured in that last set against Sinner. We'll see if he's fully recovered or not, but de Minaur has been playing well. I think he'll look sharp here in this event once again. Now, for the other options in this quarter, not many great options besides de Minaur at 225, but I decided to go for a longer shot. I was not going to take Medvedev, who we'll see how serious the leg injury is or not. But the point is he's off cramping. He hasn't won an event in roughly 2 years. And I think with that being the case, there's not much value at 5-1. Tsitsipas, we know we can't trust, number 1 on the clown rankings, so not going to pick him ever. But I will go with Fekina as my second choice at around a 9-1 for this one. I think Fekina's draw is okay. You're looking at Fekina, and he has a bye followed by Arnaldi or Sakamoto, then potentially getting Medvedev in the third round. We'll see if he's actually healthy or not. So that could be why I think there might be value on Fekina. We saw Medvedev destroy Fekina this past week, but I do question fatigue-wise if Medvedev is going to come out flat. Fekina looked very good against Carabelli, got destroyed by Medvedev. It happens, but still, I think you're looking at a decent spot for Fekina at 9-1, since I do think it'll be a pretty chalk-heavy quarter with de Minaur at 225 and with Fekina at 9-1. Don't see any super long shots. I'll stick with those two as my choices for the first quarter. Moving on to the second quarter. This is going to be a pretty dicey one because you have Zverev as the favorite to win the quarter. So Zverev's 150. You have FAA at 450. I see Musetti at 5-1. You have Valheshka at 6-1. Mensik is at 7-1. Shapo is 12-1. You have Mickelson at 16-1. You get the point. So I think it's similar to the first quarter in the sense that I really see one of the top guys winning this quarter. I don't see many Cinderella options unless, for example, Royer keeps it rolling after he ended up losing the final to Bublik a few weeks ago. Or you're looking at maybe Shapo goes nuclear and he figures it out. But I'm not going to bet on that, obviously, because he has been more likely than not unreliable. So I am going to skip Zverev, though. The fact is, not a great spot for him. He ended up having a bit of an injury in the Laver Cup, came back, ended up playing a pretty, I'd say, underwhelming run as Medvedev beat him in straight sets. So not exactly the outcome that Zverev wanted, but he's played a lot of tennis and he's had an injury or two, not sold on the price at 150. I'll pass. Not to mention the fact that his draw is also not that favorable. Zverev does have Royer potentially in the second round, who he should beat. Royer's been quite good, so maybe that could be an upset. We'll see what happens. But I think for the actual quarter in itself, I got two options. I'll go Musetti. I know did retire against TN, but I do like the draw. And I'll go Leheshka at 6-1. So for Musetti's case here, looking at the actual draw for Musetti, overall not bad. Has Comasagna or Blanchette in the second round after a bye. Then Darderi is the bye player in his section, which is favorable. He is in the same immediate section as well as Felix, but we know Felix and Mensik have been vulnerable lately. I think it's a pretty decent path for Musetti, and we saw him make a final in Chengdu. He almost won. Point is, I like his form. I think his game translates well to the courts here with the firepower he possesses. I'll go with him at 5-1 as my first choice. Second choice, though, Leheshka at 6-1. Like the firepower, the serve, the forehand. I think his game translates well to the courts here. And I'm looking at his actual path. It's really favorable. He has a bye, then McDonald or Hallis, then probably Shapo. So really not a bad draw. He would have Zverev later on, but Zverev we know can be had. And maybe if you ended up seeing Leheshka unload on the forehand, he can potentially overpower Zverev. We'll see. But 6-1, I like for value play for the draw, which should get him into a great opportunity to make it into the third, fourth round, etc. Give me Leheshka at 6-1 as my other choice for the second quarter. Before we get into the remainder of the outrights for Shanghai, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is my book at ADG. You can bet on football. They have a prop builder second to none. Bet on anything, anywhere, anytime. Use crypto for deposits and payouts. When you sign up for your new account, use code SGPN for a 100% betback bonus, $500 for new customers. Book at ADG promo code SGPN. Once again, 100% betback bonus, $500 for new customers. Book at ADG promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is America's #1 prediction market, and you can also check sports prediction market. And a reminder, use Novig as an exchange because you can get some great prices on the market. It's available in a bunch of states, 35 plus to be exact. Download the Novig app, get $50 when you spend just $5 if you use the promo code SGPN. Get an extra Novig, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the first couple of outrights. Time to move on into the third quarter for Shanghai. This is the Djokovic quarter. Now, Joker, I said earlier in the show, he is the defending runner-up in the event. And overall, his draw is really not that bad. Has himself as the favorite at 140. You have Shelton at plus 330, who's off the shoulder injury from the U.S. Open. You have Ruud, who made a good showing in the last event, won a set of Alcaraz, then lost in 3. Still looked pretty good, but he's currently at around 5-1. I see Caboli at 10-1. Don't trust him. We saw TN kill him. I'm not really sold on Caboli's consistency at the moment. Rublev, definitely not sold on his consistency, or I should say he's been consistently erratic, if that makes sense. Kind of an oxymoron. But I think you're looking at a spot where Rublev might self-destruct again. I'll fade him there, but I'm not going to take him at 12-1. Tiafoe, 14-1, who's been really bad lately as well. Not going to bother. Not a fan of the form. Berrettini is at plus 2,000. Now, if you think his serve and his forehand are going to be on point, he's dangerous. Courts are fast here in Shanghai. So if you want to make an argument for it, I wouldn't really stop you. But he is against Manarino in the first matchup, which is definitely not an easy one. We'll see what happens. But if you want to go for a guy with upside based on court skill set, I think that you can make an argument for Berrettini at plus 2,000. Would I take him? Probably not. I'm going pretty chalky for this one. I'm skipping Shelton with the injury. Ruud, I'll get back to in a second. Caboli hasn't played that well lately. Rublev, same thing. Tiafoe, same thing. Not really interested. So for me, I'm going to go with chalk. Give me Djokovic at plus 175 and give me Ruud as my long shot here at plus 700. I like how he played last event. Won a set of Alcaraz, and he had a chance to go up a break in the third. Didn't convert, but I think 7-1 has some merit for his actual form right now. I'll go for Ruud at plus 700 to win the third quarter. Moving on to the fourth quarter, the center quarter. Of course, he's a massive favorite. He's about minus 400 in most spots. However, I did end up finding a plus 220. So once again, shop around. So you have center as of right now at minus 400. You have Fritz at 350. You have Rune at 12 to 1. You have Bublik at 14 to 1. You have Monkic at 16 to 1. You have Humbert 22 to 1. You get the point. So we know Sinner's playing in a final on Wednesday. He's not looked great physically so far in the Beijing event, and yet he's still here in the final. So I am going to go Sinner. I'm not going to bet it, but there is a 220 hanging on BetMGM compared to about minus 400 market wide. So you're looking at a pretty good opportunity to get basically half the price from one book, like DraftKings, for example, at minus 405 or so, and get minus 220 by shopping around. Do I think he's going to win the quarter? Probably. Will I bet it? No. Same thing as last week, and I think he'll be able to find a way into the semis and beyond. However, I'm not going to take him by himself because if there is a chance that Sinner does end up withdrawing because of the injury, there might be some value on some other guys. I'll go with Fritz, who ended up having a solid Laver Cup, did lose in the final in Tokyo to Alcaraz, but he's playing well. The serve plays well here on these courts. Think you're going to end up seeing him look sharp in this one if fatigue's not a big factor. So for the fourth quarter, give me Sinner minus 220 and give me Fritz at plus 400. Moving on to the outrights to win the actual event. So starting off with the lowest odds for the event, you are looking at, just pulling it up right now, Sinner minus 125. You have Zverev at 8 to 1. Djokovic is at 850. Fritz is at 10 to 1. You have de Minaur at 12 to 1. Shelton at 18 to 1, I mean. You're looking at Felix being 25 to 1. You have Leheshka being 35 to 1. Medvedev is at 35 to 1 as well. Same as Ruud, same as Musetti. You get the drill. So for the actual outrights, first of all, the question was going to be, am I blindly taking Sinner? And you know what? The answer is actually no. I'm going to pass on Sinner this week. Yes, I know that there are a lot of off days, which does allow the human body to recharge properly. And Sinner might look sharper under that type of format. But at the same point, he's not looked great. And the fact is, it seems like he has a leg issue. So not really sold, especially with the amount of tennis he's played. I'm going to pass on Sinner. I don't see much value for a guy who does end up having some type of ailment right now impacting him. And he does a bye in the first round, but still the event's starting on Wednesday at around midnight Eastern before the actual final ends in Beijing. So not a great spot for Shelton. I passed on that market. I'm going to pass on Zverev as well. Don't trust him. Djokovic I will take, though. I mentioned before the draw I think is pretty weak, and I found 9 to 1. I like it. Made a final here last year. The draw for Djokovic is very, very light. Has a bye, then Cilic or Basaveretti. Then you're looking at probably Tiafoe in the third round, or in the fourth round, I mean. And then you're looking up top on who he'd play after that, and it's still pretty weak. So I'm going to go for the value, once again, play here with Djokovic. I think the draw is so nice early on that he should end up in a decent spot to make a deep run. The problem is he's in the same half as Sinner, and I think Sinner will never lose to Djokovic ever again. So it's a bad matchup there, but we also know Djokovic owns Fritz. So if Fritz ends up taking the quarter from Sinner, suddenly Joker's got a chance to make the final just based on head-to-head success, and I think that's a good way to go about it. So give me the Djokovic outright play at 9 to 1 as my first choice. Moving on, I'm going to go de Minaur at 16 to 1. Yes, he lost to Sinner in a very tough 3-set match, but you know what? He played very well, and I said before his draw is nice. I agree. Has a matchup against, I believe that is, has a bye in the first round. Then he's going to be taking on Carabelli or Ottman, and then he's probably taking on, if I had to guess, either Nakashima or potentially Quinn, who knows? But I think probably Nakashima. I'll give that to de Minaur. Think he's in great form. He looks very good, and he's been good on hard court all year. Give me 16 to 1 for that one. And for the last one, for the long shot, give me Leheshka at around plus 5,000. Was 66 to 1. The line did plummet a bit more. Think the draw is okay, but it's mainly based on his play style. He has firepower, a good serve, and a good forehand. Think it is a good opportunity to showcase the firepower, look sharp, and beat some, I'd say, weak competition. Bye, then McDonald or Hallis, then probably Shapo in the third round. Fourth round, Zverev. We'll see if he actually does make it that far. Who knows? But the draw, I think, is definitely, I'd say, full of value potentially for him. And I think 50 to 1 is a pretty good price. I'll take it before it moves. So once again, the outrights for Shanghai. For the first quarter, First quarter, I'm going to go with two people. I'm going to go with the same approach that we basically ended up having in the last event for Fakina. I think the odds feel a bit too big. I know that it was 4-1 last episode. Now it's 9-1 for this event. But 9-1 does feel pretty large. I'll go Dimonauer, though, as my chalky option at 225. And I'll go with Fakina at 9-1 as my second choice for the first quarter. Second quarter, give me Musetti at 5-1 and give me Leheshka at around 6-1. Moving on to the third quarter, I have Djokovic at 175, and I also have Ruud at 7-1. And then for the fourth quarter, I have pretty much chalk. I have Sinner at -220, and I have Fritz at around 4-1. So for the outrights, to win the event, I am going to go with Djokovic to win at 9-1. Like the price, no Alcaraz. Bit of a weaker field at this point. You're looking at Dimonauer, 16-1. Love the price on FanDuel, and Leheshka found 50-1 on BetRivers. So I'll go with all three of those as my long shot or my overall outright picks for the Shanghai Masters. Going to wrap it up, though, for the preview of the outrights. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, remember the Brought to Our sponsor, which is, as always, on Fantasy. You can play Fantasy Pick'em for a chance to win a bunch of money with Fantasy Pick'em entries. With 5 times your entry, pick higher or lower on your favorite player stats, and it's available for a ton of different sports. You can also use crypto. Actually, can you use crypto? I don't know if you actually can. I got to actually check that. But point is, they have a new offer for new customers. You play just $5, get $100 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. Not sure if you can deposit with crypto or not. I'll check that. But the point is, you can get a nice deal getting $100 in bonus funds by spending just $5. So we're also brought to you by Rhythm, which is off to a great start in the NFL. The reminder, you can also use Rhythm for their leaderboard, cash prizes every week, for tracking your bets in the app. And a reminder that you can also use the discount code SGPN25. You download the Rhythm app for a quarter off your first month. Download Rhythm with the code SGPN25 for a quarter off your first month. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the outrights for Shanghai. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go to a matchup between Baez and Zhang. And for this one, give me Zhang money line at -140. Shanghai plays very fast, and you're looking at Zhang, who has a game that's really built to succeed on these type of fast courts. Good serve, good forehand. Think he's a pretty decent mover as well. Hasn't played much lately. The point is he did beat Boot in 3. Then he lost a couple matches out after that. But to be fair, I don't think the path's been that easy. It looks bad on paper, but I think the guys he's been against have been in good form. And you're looking at Baez, who barely plays the hard court season for good reason. Baez is 2-15 in his last 17 hard court matches. 2-15. He stinks on hard court, and it is a fast court once again. Baez, more of a clay guy, wants the patience, wants to rally. I don't see that happening. I think that Zhang will use the serve, end points quickly. Baez, we know, is not a great server. Think he'll end up struggling to hold as well. So give me Zhang in this one on the money line at -140. Also faced off on hard court back in 2022, the only meeting ever, and you ended up seeing Zhang win in straight sets. So give me Zhang, money line against in my opinion, a very weak hardcore player in Baez at -140 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go to a guy who's also been struggling recently. I am going to go with the Nishioka fade. I'll take Shevchenko money line at +124. So Nishioka's been awful. He's 2-9 in his last 11. Shevchenko, though, has been quite good lately. Ended up making the semis in Chengdu. Got destroyed by Musetti, but you know what? Making the semis there is still pretty respectable. And the fact is, you're looking at Shevchenko, who has been playing well. I mean, the argument for Nishioka, we know the firepower is not really there. He wants to rally a lot, but either the patience isn't there, the health isn't there, or all the above. So for me, I'm going to go with Shevchenko, who's looked good for the last week or two, and Baez has really not done much. Faced off against Alcaraz in the last event, lost immediately. It was Alcaraz. What are you going to do? But I think you're looking at a spot where fading the clay specialist at plus money has value for a guy that made a hard court semi about a week and a half ago. So I'll go with Shevchenko there, not to mention the fact that despite being Japanese, which might be why Nishioka's favorite because of crowd support, I'll mention that Nishioka has been really bad in main draw events here in this event. So in the Shanghai Masters, he is 1-3 in his last 4 main draw matches. Now he went through qualifying, so maybe he will look sharper this time around. Killed Vukic, I believe, in the last round of qualifying. But the point is Shevchenko has been objectively solid recently, and plus money fading guy that is 2-9 in his last 11, I think has some merit to it. I also forgot to mention that Shevchenko did beat Sarundalo last year in straight sets this event. So we know Cerundolo can be streaky, still a pretty solid overall player, and Shevchenko beat him in straight sets in this event last year. Think the game translates well to his play style. Think it'll look sharp here. Give me the plus money as my dog. So once again, the plays for the lock and dog. The lock's going to be on Zhang moneyline at minus 140 as he ends up taking on Baez. For the dog, I am going to go with the Shevchenko moneyline at plus 124 against Nishioka. So that's going to wrap it up for the show. We'll back at some point later on in the week to get into some rounds, etc., some upcoming matches. You know the drill. But until next time, find me on Twitter.